my soul. Got the blues and a baby, ain't the baby rock and roll. Let's say about it. Long time ago in the South.
Kind of the story of the venue, you know, the history of it, how you got involved,
Yeah.
kind of.
Again, I'm an environmental scientist. I led an expedition on the Lewis and Clark Trail for 3 years during the bicentennial, 2004, 5, and 6. And it was an aerial expedition. I got about 40 pilots and scientists of national renown, and we traced every bend of the river in 2004 from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to Astoria, Oregon. Every bend of the Ohio, the Mississippi, the Missouri, to the Clearwater, the Snake, and then Columbia. And so we got all this really cool scientific data to compare against the actual journals of Lewis and Clark. And in 2005, we went and met all the Indian tribes that they met, which is really cool. And then in 2006, we came back because that's when they came back from the West Coast to St. Louis. And the day before that expedition actually started, my wife, Carol, crashed into the Pacific with 2 people on board her helicopter and was killed. And so I came back to Indiana shortly after that. It was like, you know, I wanted to just kind of, you know, you just kind of come back to your roots. And she and I worked together. You heard me talk about working on these fires in California. We'd done that. She was a civil engineer, and I'm an ecologist. So we'd worked together to, you know, do restoration. And I just didn't want to do that anymore, at least for a while.
Sure.
So when I came back here, I bought back some of the family property on the Flat Rock. I bought a house south of town that I started restoring. Instead of going to a shrink, I basically I started, you know, restoring a home, which is not that much different than restoring the environment. It's
Sure.
pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm getting to a point here. I thought, you know what, if I want to find out about this little town of Edinburgh where my mom grew up, I need to go get my hair cut. And so I went into the town barber here. His name was Dean Hart, and he just had a shop around the corner here. And there used to be a marquee outside this building, and it had Pixy on it. And that really fascinated me because when I gave my wife her helicopter lessons, I gave her a card that had a dragonfly on it, and it had a little fairy on the back of that dragonfly. And she said, and I said something like, "For your birthday, I give you wings." And she said, "Oh, you want me to be a pixie?" And the damn place was named the Pixie. So I asked, I asked Dean. I said, "What's the story of that old theater down there?" He says, "Well, that's a Pixie Theatre." He says, "It's a Masonic lodge." He said, "It's one of the oldest Masonic lodges in Indiana. It's number 100, actually."
Really?
Yep. And this building was built in 1907. And he says, "It's for sale." I said, "Why would I want to buy that building?" He said, "Oh," he says, "it's an amazing building." He says, I saw World of Worlds there in 1955. He says, "I came around the corner after getting my pop and my soda," and he says, "I started shaking so bad because there was mechanical monsters in there spitting sparks and fire out." And he kept talking, and my hair kept getting shorter, you know. That's the way it goes. The price you pay. So, but anyway, I said, "Well, you know, it's kind of interesting." I said, I actually bought the theater in Culver, Indiana, for my sister and brother-in-law, and for them to run with their family. And I think that kind of intrigued him. And he said, "Well, you know, we can't get up and down the stairs anymore. We're all older, all of us Masons." He says, "I'm a former past master," or something like that. And he says, if you can find a building in town," this was the hook. He says, "If you can find a building in town that's only one story, maybe one step or two up to the door," he says, "we'd trade you." And I said, I'll never forget it. I said, "Well, you know the town better than I do." So, you know, or something like that. So I go home to San Diego, right? The very next day I get a call. "Mike, this is Chad Brand, the worshipful master of local free and accepted Mason Lodge 100 in Edinburgh. And I understand you're interested in buying the Pixie." And I said, "Well, I don't know if I'm that interested." He said, "Oh, we found a building in town." and we'll trade you. And I said, okay. So anyway, I thought, well, what the hell, you know? So I came back. I flew back like 2 days later. I wasn't doing anything anyway. And they took me to a Jehovah's Witness hall down Main Street.
Okay.
And it's one story. It
Yep.
has no windows, you know, and it's one step up. And so all the Masons met me down there, and I'm looking at it, and they're going, "What do you think? Is this good?" I said, "Well, is it good for you? I mean, I don't care about
Yeah,
it."
I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, this would be great. You know, we'll do all the, we'll have our stuff here, and I don't know. I just, people always ask me why I bought this place, but I decided, okay, I would, you know. So I ended up buying it off the Jehovah's Witnesses, and we just swapped. So I swapped a 1,200 square foot building for a 12,000 square foot building. And at the time I bought this place, all the windows were covered over with metal, and on the inside, the windows were covered over with drywall. So you didn't even know. It was a big black hole. And they brought me in here, and it was dark, and they showed me the theater. There were a couple lights on in there that turned on. Everything was heated with the old type steam registers.
Mhm.
So they'd blown the boiler 20 years before, so
Yeah.
it wasn't, you know, everything was ruined. So then they started showing me around. They showed me on the second floor where they had their library, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this is where I can put Carol's archives, because she was like the country's expert on stormwater pollution. She was well known. And an alumni of the year at San Diego State, along with an astronaut, actually, who now is the director of the Johnson Space Center. But Carol was really, really accomplished civil engineer. I thought, well, that's where I can put her stuff, you know, because I endowed a scholarship at San Diego State in her name, and I thought they would take her stuff, but they didn't want to. So that was a big reason for buying it. Then they showed me the third floor, which you'll see. I mean, it's a big building. And then they had this organ upstairs. That's a 1928 Aeolian that's priceless. It's more rare than a Wurlitzer. And of course, with all this, when you get all this, you know, handed to you, there's a responsibility to restore it and take care of it, including that organ.
Yeah.
So what we tried to do here, when I first bought it, I sat to do anything for a year. I had to finish up my house, and then the recession hits. And the real story of the Pixie is not what we do here now, but we hired all these kids in town that were in trouble with the law. Some of them had ankle bracelets on. I went to court for one of them, you know, testified to the judge to not throw him away for 17 years. So we had all these kids, and the real credit for that goes to a lady named Judy Chandler. You'll meet her tonight. She pops the corn. She's sort of the matron of the Pixie, but she knew all these kids that were in trouble because their sons at one time or another were in trouble too. So it was all their friends. We ended up hiring about 23, 24, 25 kids here, and we paid them, and we taught them some skills. They didn't do the hard stuff. I mean, we had this is all to code, the electrical, the plumbing, everything. But we hired them to basically be gophers and tear out walls that weren't original to the building, or try, you know. So when you go around here and you look and you'll say, well, that looks unfinished, or maybe the paint's not good, or, you know, they got paint on the baseboard, or, you know, all myriad of things. The stain is too dark. Well, we don't care.
Yeah.
You know, we kept them busy for about 2 years, and I think that's the reason I bought the
Yeah.
Pixie, whether I knew it or not. We want to go for a walk around here a little bit?
I would love to.
Yeah, I'll show you around. But when the Masons were here, they would come in the door on this side, and so there was a wall here, and we restored it to its original shape. You know, we took it out, and that wall, I'll show you, is down by the stage. But in the 1940s, some Disney artists came out here and they painted these little features, and we saved them. And that wall has a bunch of cartoon characters on it. It weighs 3,500 pounds, so we saved it. But it was funny because you have Peter the Wolf right here. But we took that wall out because if you were here from the day that the place was built, you would be able to go upstairs to the second floor in the balcony. But the rest of it was kind of like sacred.
Yeah.
So that's the way Masonic lodges are.
Sure.
They have sort of for the secular. This is our cornerstone. It's the only building in town that had one, and the Masons approached me a few years back and they wanted to get their artifacts out of there. Yeah, the first time I was in here, there was hardly any light at all. Somebody said, oh, if you reach your hand behind that curtain, there's these push button flip switches, right? And so I got up here and I'm reaching for them, right? And I hit them, but nothing came on, but it was like something was up in the upper left-hand corner of the stage. I'm telling you, there was just something up there. And I came out here and I just did a flip off the stage, landed on my back. Yeah, all I can tell you is kind of like a gargoyle looking thing. And I call him the Watcher because it was like he's just sitting there watching. But what we have here, this is really cool. We have our footlights of fame. And the first one that was in here is our dad. He was called Clarence Harding, the Boy Wonder. And then we have other people in here. I don't know if you've heard of Lloyd Wood. He's a Hoosier treasure. We had the Pumpkin Holler Boys. We got Michael Kelsey. Got all.
You probably know the Pumpkin Holler Boys, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we love them.
They're
They're great.
awesome. They're great.
Yeah, they're great. And so these are all just people that we put on our stage that have come back and honored us with their presence. Well, let's go see some more stuff. This is really cool. These are the original projectors from 1927. And they actually work. The police chief in town and the fire chief retired used to operate these. And you know, if you turn them on, the entire grid in Edinburgh goes, and it was all metal lined because silver nitrate film catches on fire. That's why this thing, when you shut it, it locks. I mean, it's like a bank vault.
Man.
This is the green room. These are different bands that played here. I got these brass rails from the old pharmacy down the street. They were selling them off, and I thought, no, what is in Edinburgh stays in Edinburgh. So we bought these and used them in here. Best place to hear music is up here. So there was like this wall here. So if you came up, we didn't even know it. We couldn't find our way around to begin with, you know. But then we took out this wall and it was like, oh yeah, there's a staircase that goes up to the lodge, right?
Oh, and this is the part people normally wouldn't.
Yeah, they would stop right there. I mean, the initiates would come up that stairway. We call that the Masonic stairwell. And they'd come up here and they would wait here, secret knock on this door, then they'd go upstairs, secret knock on that door. So this is the inner sanctum right here. But this is the dining room right here. And these were the original to the building. Judy, who you'll meet tonight, took the kids and they stripped every one of these. We had them reupholstered.
Beautiful.
And all the doors, we had 38 doors, and every one of those, everything was blue. This was their dining room. This is what we call the river room now. It's got my library in here. But originally the ceiling was down about the height of that lamp right there. And it was a false ceiling, and it had those kinds of globes on it. So I came in here and pushed up one of the panels, and it was like, holy moly. All the plaster was falling off some of the walls, so we just took the plaster off. This is Masonic stuff that we've found. We haven't gone through the whole building yet, to be honest with you. Everything's got a story. I did a lot of work in the gold and copper mines in Indonesia, and interesting, I helped write the Indian Mine Reclamation Law when I was 22, as if I knew what I was doing, right? Turns out they use it in Indonesia. So when I was down there, I got a call from the embassy. And they said, come over here. And this guy that I knew from the Office of Surface Mining in Pittsburgh, and I ended up teaching, he brought in all the inspectors from all 1,400 islands in Indonesia. And I taught a course for 2 days. And then I get invited out to all these mines. This is from Bali, that's actually African, Java, Sumatra. These are, which ones are from Borneo? That one's from Borneo. And I mean, it's just Irian Jaya, you know, all this stuff. And every one of them's got a story. This is the coolest artifact right here. when I was in Batu Hiju, which is on the island of Sumbawa, every morning I would get a list of guys that were available for work, because a lot of times you don't have the technical machinery or materials, and so you do everything by hand, you know. So one day I got my list, and it's 2 guys were missing because they had been killed in knife and club fights. Okay, so you can imagine they have those daggers that are like this, and so they stab like this. So I went up into the woods and I found this. Whoever died left this.
Oh
Right?
my gosh.
And we use it to pound in steaks. We take bamboo stakes and we go up a hillside and we hang in these stakes, and then they thatch it like they would a roof, and it prevents the erosion. But yeah, I call it aboriginality. You use what you have available.
Yeah.
This is really cool. This is this is from Borneo. It's 2 buffalo horns, but it's ceremonial, but it's basically for putting stuff in. But this is their version of Noah's Ark. It was a giant grasshopper that all the human beings rode to safety on.
Oh wow.
Isn't that wild?
It's beautiful.
And this was carved for me by the chief of the Chamorro tribe. Ironwood, you can't hardly do it, and they just sit there and carve it like it's butter. It's something. I don't understand.
Wow.
It's cool. Huh?
Yeah, it is.
And this is my wife's dressing room out in San Diego. And there's no way I was going to get rid of this, so I brought it here. And many a day, many a morning, she'd always take exactly an hour to get ready for work. She's an engineer, right? And she'd always read for about a half hour. And I'd go down to Starbucks and I'd get her a latte, because she liked lattes. And sitting right there. Last week was our 30th anniversary. Yeah, pretty lady.
Wow.
A very accomplished engineer. So you sit here, the brides are in here with their bridesmaids, and then they start playing the organ, and boom, out you go. We can sit 150 people in here. We flip it around, and you can serve 100 people dinner. We have line dancing up here. We have all kinds of parties up here. The initiates, you would sit along the walls in these benches, and the altar was right there. The big G with the level and the square and everything was on that wall with columns. We have them up overhead now. All this has been redone, new windows and everything. And but that's not the organ. Everybody thinks that's the organ. That's just a cabinet, solid walnut, hand carved. It came from the Levy Mansion up in Indianapolis when they put in the spaghetti bowl downtown, the I-70. It was near the Benjamin Harrison home. They took it out and they brought it here in boxes by train. By bus. They told me by bus. So this was the last room that they actually showed me. Right. And I'm going, oh my God, you know. And it works. I had it restored. The same people that work on the circle organ downtown did this. And this is not the original keyboard. They don't know what happened to it. This is like from the 1950s, which still is old.
Yeah.
And then this is my somewhat office here. I've been bringing everything back from San Diego. So this is the Museum of the Flight of Discovery. I told you about what I did. This is my crew right there from 2004. And that's Carol right there. And Purdue did a little story on us, but yeah, we traced every freaking curve of the rivers at 1,500 feet, 105 knots, and I'll tell you what, that's the way to see America. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
And then we had a ground crew. So instead of having Lewis and Clark on our logo, it's the Sacagawea and a pilot, you know.
Yes.
And then, but yeah, we took pictures every day, the ground crew as well as the flight crew. And we match these up, and it's pretty neat. I'm writing my journals. Purdue is going to publish them. You know, Lewis never did publish his. They were published 100 years after his death. So, you know, I want to be around when that happens.
Yeah.
But that's the crew right there, and it includes my son, who is a physicist actually. You know, my 2 kids I told you were potty trained in a 2-hole outhouse, but he's a graduate physicist. He's a rocket scientist.
Wow.
And my daughter teaches fashion design and art in New York. So, you know, I don't think being raised as little Hoosiers on a farm hurt them at all.
No, I think it's good for people.
If you look in here, yeah, these are the pipes to the, this is the organ.
Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing? Look at the size of these poplar pipes. Handcrafted, right? And then over here are the metal ones. Look how small they are. Look here. Little tiny things.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
And then you gotta take care of this, you know what I'm saying? We actually put new deer skin on the bellows. And
Oh my gosh.
this is cool stuff, man. And a lot of places don't have this. Most organs don't.
A percussive
Freaking
side.
xylophone. Can you believe that?
It's awesome.
It is awesome. I mean, seriously. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. And so that's the cabinet
Yeah.
that we saw in the other room.
Yep.
So the sound actually comes from in
Comes
here.
right out here, and you can damper it. These things close or open up to make it. But
Is that electrical too?
yeah,
So there's an electrical component.
yeah. See how that works? You close-
Oh,
There you go.
that's amazing. Thank you so much.
I believe to my soul that the blues and a baby ain't the baby rock and roll. Let's say about it. Long time ago in the South, people didn't have no place